This is what makes money money. As of today, Google employs around 160,000 people and makes over $280 billion annually. I think we can all agree that that is a lot of money. All those employees follow Google's lead because Google provides them with money and also because they're chained to a contract. But what is this money that Google and other companies pay to their workers? And why does everyone need this money? Simply put, money is an abstract concept that society has agreed to believe in. But how did we start to believe in money? And how did the concept of money come to be? What do you think about when you hear the word money? Credit cards, cash, or gold? What about teeth, chocolate, or dried fish? All these things have served as a form of money at some point in history. But what ties these unrelated items together as money? Understanding money's history is complicated. It's evolved differently throughout human history, so explaining its basic principle is challenging. In fact, the famous British economist John Keynes described the period of his life when he studied the origins of money as his Babylonian madness, because he became so obsessed with the coinage of ancient Middle Eastern civilizations. By some accounts, money has been around nearly as long as civilization itself. About 5,000 years ago, in ancient Mesopotamia, debt systems were developed around grain storage. Workers would keep their grain in temples or warehouses known as grain banks. A ledger, what we would consider a spreadsheet carved into a stone tablet, was kept that made a note of how much grain you owned. You could then lend that grain or exchange it with someone else without having to go through the trouble of taking the grain to where that person was and giving it to them. This ledger became a way of keeping record of the debts everyone owed each other. In fact, this method of tracking debts resembles our current banking system. But that's another story for another day. In the beginning, money served as a kind of memory, a system to track who owed what to whom. For thousands of years, precious metals like gold and silver have been used as currency. For example, the ancient Egyptians used gold bars of specific weights for trade, and in Bronze Age Britain, gold was often used in ornate jewelry, which some believe was used as a form of payment. However, trading metals in their raw form comes with a problem. How can you tell its worth? To be certain, you need to weigh your piece of gold or silver and ensure its authenticity. This isn't very practical for everyday shopping. So what's the solution? If you guessed coins, you'd be right. You see, the idea of a coin, which was created by turning a valuable metal into a specific size and shape and marking it with an official seal to confirm validity and trust, started with the ancient Lydians around 700 BCE. At the British Museum, there's even a coin made by King Croesus of Lydia in 6th century BCE, marked with a lion and a bull. Looking at the short history of money, let's discuss what makes money money. Even though it's so important, you'd be surprised to find that there's no universally agreed definition for money. Still, many economists agree that money should fulfill three roles, as proposed by famous Scottish economist Adam Smith nearly 250 years ago. The first role is straightforward. You should be able to buy things with it. Economists call this the medium of exchange. It means you can use money to get something that isn't money, knowing others will accept it because they can also use it to buy things in the future, and not necessarily because they want to use it themselves. This type of transaction is different from barter trading, whereby you swap something you have for something you want. For instance, it is bartering when I trade my chicken for your grain to make some bread, but using money is when I trade my chicken for a rock, then trade that rock for some grain. The second role is that money should preserve its value over time. You should be sure that the money you get today will still buy you the same amount of goods or services tomorrow. Economists call this the store of value function. Imagine if we used bananas as money. You could get paid 10 bananas today and be sure that they'll buy you something of the same value tomorrow. But if you wanted to save your bananas for a vacation in 6 months, your bananas would rot and be worthless by then. In this case, bananas can't hold their value. That being said, food has been used as money at different points in history. Salt, for instance, was used in much of the ancient world. Bricks of tea were used in parts of China up until the Second World War, and even as recently as 2009, huge wheels of Parmesan cheese could still be used as a deposit for a loan in some parts of Italy. The ability to store value is part of what makes money so useful. It solves the double coincidence of wants issue, one of the biggest problems in economics, where you must find someone who wants what you have and has what you want. Even in big societies, this can be very hard. While you might love reading insightful books on economics, not everyone shares this interest. If your local gas station owner doesn't want your favorite economics book, you won't be able to fill up your gas tank with it. Money solves this problem. You can exchange what you produce for money and then hold on to it until you have something you want to buy. And the seller will accept your money regardless of if they need your goods or services or not. That makes sense, right? The third role of money is as a record-keeping tool. Economists call this the unit of account. It means we express the value of all things in terms of money. For instance, how much value does that banana have? $1? What about that car? $5,000? We can know the value of both cars and bananas in dollars, and having a single unit that does this is a remarkable time saver. Without it, you would need to know the price of every item and its equivalent barter trading item. Imagine the problem of trying to grow and transport 5,000 bananas to trade for a car. This is what would happen in a barter economy, where there is no money and goods are just swapped for one another. It might not be a problem in a simple world, where one person makes bread, another brews beer, and one sells meat. In that case, to trade, you would merely need to know how many pints of beer equals one loaf of bread, how much meat equals 1 pint of beer, and how much meat equals a loaf of bread. Only those 3 items. But this approach doesn't work in a complex world. A typical supermarket has about 150,000 items. Without money, you need to know about 11 billion prices to compare items. With money, you only need to know 150,000 prices, one for each item. The 3 roles of money are interrelated. People are unlikely to accept something as payment if its future value is uncertain. So a bad store of value can't be a good medium of exchange. Similarly, if it's uncertain whether something will be accepted as payment tomorrow, it's a poor store of value. If everyone uses one thing to pay, it's logical to use it to set prices. So the most common medium of exchange usually becomes the dominant unit of account. Despite these functions, they don't fully explain what money is. At its core, money is trust. It works because we all agree that it has value. You accept money for your work because you know the store will accept it, and the store accepts it because they know others will. It works because we believe it does. Consider a piece of currency, like a dollar bill, a rupee, or a €5 note. What is it? It's just paper. You can't eat it, drink it, or wear it. But when the government and banks say, this tiny piece of paper is equal to 10 bananas, we can trust them. As long as everyone agrees on this system, the paper truly equals 10 bananas. You can take this paper to a store, hand it over to a stranger, and they'll give you a real, edible banana in return.